I woke up to the sound of chainsaws. Not the distant hum of construction, not the occasional pruning of a neighbor's hedge. This was different. This was violent. This was personal. I stumbled out onto my porch in my pajamas, heart pounding, the morning air thick with diesel fumes and the acrid scent of fresh-cut wood. And there they were, 6 towering oak trees, each over 40 years old, being torn from the earth by men in work uniforms, their chainsaws roaring like beasts. Trees that had shaded my home since the 1980s. Trees my late wife Sarah had planted with her own hands. Trees where we'd sat together every spring, watching the buds bloom, where she told me she was sick, where I scattered her ashes after she was gone. And standing beside a white Escalade, clipboard in hand, was Constance Pettin, my real estate agent, the woman who sold me this house, the president of our HOA, and now the woman directing the destruction of my sanctuary. She was smiling. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that those trees weren't just on my property. They were legally protected. And her actions that morning weren't just cruel, they were criminal. And that single, reckless decision to cut down those trees would unravel a web of fraud, embezzlement, and property theft so vast it would cost her everything she owned. What would you do if your HOA destroyed $50,000 worth of trees? Not because they were dangerous, not because they were diseased, but simply to improve someone else's view. I'll tell you what I did. I turned her illegal chainsaw party into a $1.4 million judgment and took control of her entire subdivision 3 years ago. I thought I'd found paradise. My name is Garrett Blackwood. I'm 52, a retired electrical engineer, and after losing my wife Sarah to cancer, I was searching for peace. A quiet place to grieve, to remember, to begin again. I found it in Millbrook Estates, Ohio, a quiet subdivision on the edge of a small lake, with winding streets, mature trees, and a sense of stillness I hadn't felt in years. I bought a corner lot, 1.2 acres, with 6 massive oak trees that had stood since the 1980s. Sarah would have loved it. She always said trees were proof that beautiful things could grow stronger after weathering storms. The woman who sold me the house was Constance Pettin, blonde, polished, driving a white Escalade with Blessed on the license plate. She mentioned casually that she was also the HOA president. Just a formality. She said, "We barely have any rules." That should have been my first red flag. The second came at my first HOA meeting. Constance ran it like a corporate boardroom. PowerPoint presentations, property value optimization, and a gavel she slammed down like a judge when a 70-year-old veteran asked to build a memorial garden for his son. "Not in keeping with our vision," she declared. But the real warning sign, the way she kept glancing out the window at my trees like she was calculating something. 6 weeks later, she showed up at my door in tennis whites, clipboard in hand, perfume so strong I could taste it. "Garrett, honey," she said, heels clicking like a countdown, "we need to talk about your trees. Some lakefront neighbors are concerned about their views." I reminded her the trees were here when I bought the place from her. "In fact, oh, absolutely," she said, smile never wavering. "But things evolve. Property values, community standards. I'm sure we can find a solution that works for everyone." That was constant speak. Everyone meant her. Solution meant I lose. Over the next 18 months, she escalated like a textbook bully. First came nightly power walks past my yard, commenting on overgrowth and maintenance issues. Then came the violation notices: grass too high, mailbox wrong color, welcome mat the wrong shade. Each carried $50 daily fines. Each appeal forced me before a board of nervous retirees who wouldn't meet my eyes before voting against me. The message was clear: comply or bleed. But here's what Constance didn't know about electrical engineers. We're problem solvers, and we keep records. While she played neighborhood dictator, I was researching property law, pulling original subdivision documents, and documenting every interaction. Those nights under my threatened trees weren't just about saving oaks. They were about understanding exactly how much power Constance actually had. The answer: less than she thought. The breaking point came when she hired a so-called arborist to declare my healthy 40-year-old trees imminently dangerous. That's when I discovered her first major mistake. The guy wasn't certified for safety assessments. His report was worthless, but as I dug deeper, I uncovered something far bigger than tree fraud, something that would turn her from predator to prey. Constance's revenge came fast and theatrical. 2 weeks after her fake arborist scheme collapsed, she appeared at my door with a thick manila folder and that predatory smile. "Garrett, honey," she purred, "I have wonderful news. The newly formed Millbrook Estates Emergency Safety Committee has declared your trees an imminent threat." I'd never heard of this committee. Inside the folder were photos of my oaks during an ice storm, branches weighed down by ice shot from angles that made healthy trees look like hazards. The report demanded immediate removal to prevent catastrophic damage. The audacity was breathtaking, but she'd made a crucial mistake. I knew real emergency assessments required certified arborists, so that evening I checked the state licensing database. Her expert had his license suspended for falsifying reports. The state had a thick file on him. Even better, I remembered Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings. Every conversation I'd had with Constance, where she admitted she was doing this for the lakefront views, was legal evidence. The next morning, I called City Inspector Rodriguez. When he arrived, I handed him the arborist's violations and played the recordings. He walked my property with a GPS unit, muttering Spanish curses under his breath as he realized he'd been dragged into an HOA fraud scheme. "Mr. Blackwood," he said, genuinely angry, "these are specimen trees in excellent health. Someone's wasted city resources with false reports. I'll document this officially, complaint dismissed with prejudice, and tell your HOA president that filing another fraudulent report could result in criminal charges." Now came the part Constance didn't expect. I went nuclear. I filed complaints with the state licensing board, the city inspector's office, and the county prosecutor. But the real game changer came when I decided to verify my property lines. The original 1987 subdivision plat revealed a shocking truth. My lot extended 15 feet further toward the lake than current markers showed. Someone had moved the boundary markers over the years. Land that legally belonged to me was being used by neighbors for gardens and dock access. Original subdivision documents always trump later surveys. Your deed is gospel. When I confronted Mrs. Henderson with the evidence, she went pale. "Garrett, I need to confess something," she whispered. "Constance told us you were planning to remove the trees for insurance money. She said if we didn't sign her petition, our property values would drop." Then she dropped another bomb. "She's done this before. The Williams on Elm Street. She forced them to remove a healthy maple. They sold and left. That night, I sat under my oaks listening to the lake lap against what I now suspected were illegally placed docks. The pieces were forming a pattern. Constance wasn't just targeting trees, she was running a property manipulation scheme. But the biggest shock came when I checked her property. The records made my hands shake. According to original developer bankruptcy filings, Constance's entire lot, her mansion, her dock, her lakefront paradise, was supposed to be community green space. She might not legally own the land her house was built on. Constance struck back like a cornered animal. The next morning, I found 5 violation notices rubber banded to my door. Grass, 0.3 inches too high. Mailbox wrong color. Christmas decorations, up 14 days too long. Welcome mat, non-compliant. Garden hose, visibly stored. Each carried $50 daily fines. That's $250 a day bleeding from my account. She was trying to financially bleed me into submission. But she'd just given me a paper trail that afternoon. I went to the county courthouse and requested every corporate filing for the Millbrook Estates HOA. The clerk handed me a thin folder that should have been thick with reports. I found the smoking gun. The HOA's non-profit status had expired 18 months ago. They'd missed the renewal deadline and never refiled under Ohio law. An expired corporation loses all legal authority to collect fees, impose fines, or enforce rules. Constance had been running an illegal shakedown operation for over a year, but it got worse that the HOA's checking account wasn't registered to the association. Every dues payment for 24 months had gone directly into Peton Properties LLC, Constance's real estate business. $250,000 in community funds stolen. I called the Ohio Attorney General's fraud hotline. The investigator on the line practically salivated. "Mr. Blackwood, you're alleging theft of over $200,000 in homeowner dues." "That's just the beginning," I said, flipping through bank records. "She's been using our money to pay for fake expert reports and fraudulent enforcement." Then I dug into her history. I found she'd run the same scam in 2 other neighborhoods, 3 families bankrupted by escalating fines, forced to sell below market. Every sale handled by Peton Properties. She was running a property theft ring disguised as community governance. The final proof, her own Facebook posts. Photos of mature trees being cut down. Captions bragging about improved sightlines and community aesthetics. She'd confessed to conspiracy online. I called an emergency meeting with the 3 rational board members. We met in Henderson's living room, coffee steaming, tension thick. When I laid out the evidence, expired corporation, embezzlement, forced sales, their faces cycled through shock, disbelief, and fury. "She's been stealing from us for 2 years, Johnson said, voice cracking. "Worse," Henderson added, "she's been using our money to manufacture fake emergencies. Every fine she's collected is illegal." 2 nights later, Constance played her final card. She called an emergency board meeting, bringing her husband, City Councilman Richard Peton, as muscle. Under buzzing fluorescent lights, she announced, "Mr. Blackwood's defiance threatens our property values." I called for an immediate vote to authorize emergency tree removal and liens. That's when I stood. Before any votes, I said, "This community needs to know, our HOA has been operating illegally for 18 months. Every fine, every penalty, every threat, all of it is criminal fraud." The room exploded. But Constance wasn't done. She smiled, a cold, calculating look. "Well," she said, standing slowly, "it seems Mr. Blackwood has done his homework, but research can't protect you from legitimate safety concerns." She pulled out her phone. "Yes, this is Constance Peton. We have that tree emergency. First thing tomorrow, the property owner will be traveling." She'd seen my social media post, my daughter's college graduation in Cleveland. She knew I'd be gone for 8 hours. Emergency tree removal begins tomorrow at 7 a.m., she announced. Safety supersedes administrative irregularities. The meeting descended into chaos. I followed her to the parking lot. Constance, you can't authorize tree removal on my property. You have no legal authority. She turned, eyes cold as winter lake water. Watch me. I barely slept that night. At 5 a.m., I called in sick to my daughter's graduation, the first time I'd ever missed a milestone, and took position at my bedroom window with a camera. At 6:47 a.m., the convoy arrived, 2 trucks, a wood chipper, and a sheriff's cruiser. The crew looked professional. The foreman handed me a work order signed by Emergency Safety Coordinator Constance Petton. It looked official, but I knew the HOA was defunct, legally meaningless. This woman has no authority, I said. She's not even operating a legal HOA. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Sir, I'm here to supervise a legitimate safety operation. The city inspector signed off. What city inspector? I asked. Rodriguez told me my trees were healthy. Martinez fumbled with paperwork, clearly uneasy. Then the chainsaw started. Steel bit into 40-year-old oak. 6 trees fell in 27 minutes, gone, including the one with Sarah's carved initials, the tree where I proposed, where she told me she was sick, where I scattered her ashes reduced to wood chips. But here's the twist. They didn't stop at the property line. In their rush, they cut down trees 15 feet inside my confirmed boundary. Martinez realized his mistake the moment I pointed to the survey stakes. His face went white. Jesus Christ, he muttered. We may have a problem. The foreman looked sick. Ma'am said everything on this side of the driveway. I stood in the devastation, $89,000 worth of trees gone, sawdust in the air, rage burning in my chest. But through the grief, one thought crystallized. Constance had just committed multiple felonies: criminal trespass, destruction of property, fraud, conspiracy in front of witnesses. She wanted to cut down my trees for a better view instead. She'd handed me the evidence to take everything she owned. My attorney, Marcus Bennett, called back that morning. Garrett, you're not going to believe this. Constance's lakefront property was never supposed to be privately owned. It's dedicated community green space. Her deed was based on preliminary plats that were never legally recorded. And worse, she knew. Records showed she paid $15,000 to bury the truth and process a fraudulent deed. She'd been using her HOA presidency to prevent anyone from reviewing original documents, and she'd been using HOA funds to maintain her illegal property, landscaping, dock repairs, driveway, all paid for with community money. This wasn't just fraud, it was a systematic conspiracy. We filed everything at once: civil lawsuits, criminal referrals, licensing complaints. Within 48 hours, our legal team was in my living room. Forensic accountants, environmental lawyers, even a RICO specialist. We weren't just building a case, we were dismantling a criminal enterprise. The forensic accountant found $347,000 diverted into Constance's accounts. The environmental lawyer assessed $89,000 in tree damages and potential erosion in ecosystem, damage that could cost hundreds of thousands more. Then came the final bomb. The area where my memorial trees stood was protected wetland buffer. Removing them violated the Clean Water Act, federal jurisdiction. Constance thought she was solving a sightline problem. Instead, she'd committed an environmental crime on federal property. Neighbors started coming forward. Henderson, Johnson, others. Stories of fake fines, forced compliance, stolen money. Deputy Martinez's wife called. Her husband had been offered $500 cash to supervise the tree removal without asking questions. We had evidence of bribery. Constance tried to put her house on the market, attempted to liquidate assets, but we got a restraining order blocking any transfers. She went on social media. I'm being targeted by a vindictive neighbor. It backfired. Neighbors flooded the comments with their own horror stories. Then she tried to bribe Inspector Rodriguez $2,000 to backdate an emergency order. He was wearing a wire. The recording was devastating. She claimed I'd harassed her, filed a $500,000 defamation suit, but her claims were disproven by my phone records and security footage. Marcus laughed. She just handed us evidence of perjury. The community rallied meal trains, replanting crews, a legal fund that raised $12,000 in 3 days. Carol Martinez organized a petition. 41 of 47 families signed, demanding Constance's removal. Federal investigators froze her accounts. Her real estate license was suspended. Her husband faced ethics charges. Then came the final move. She called an emergency HOA meeting, claiming she wanted to dissolve the HOA and distribute assets. I knew it was a trap to destroy records and escape liability, but I wasn't alone. The community center was packed. Reporters, FBI agent Sarah Bennett in the back, taking notes. Constance sat at the head table, flanked by her sweating husband and attorney. She tried to force a vote. I stood before any dissolution. This community deserves to know. Our HOA president has embezzled $347,000, bribed officials, and illegally occupied $850,000 in community property. She snapped. That's slander. Then, to explain why your mansion sits on land that was supposed to be green space. Her husband stood. This meeting is over. But Constance wasn't done. In a fury, she shattered completely. You people don't understand what I've done for this neighborhood, she screamed. I've improved property values, removed problem residents, maintained standards. If that required creative financing and strategic property management, then so be it. Agent Bennett stopped writing. The room went silent. It was a full confession. She was arrested on the spot. Wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, bribery. Handcuffs clicked. Cameras flashed. As federal agents led her away, I stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, our community just reclaimed $850,000 in stolen property, and we're going to use it to build something beautiful together. The applause was thunderous. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of what used to be Constance's mansion, now the Sarah Blackwood Memorial Community Center. The federal judge awarded me $1.4 million, the largest HOA fraud judgment in Ohio history. Constance pleaded guilty to 14 federal charges: full restitution, forfeiture of her property, community service, teaching ethics to real estate agents. Her husband resigned in disgrace. They moved to Florida. But justice was just the beginning. We planted 40 new trees in a memorial grove, each representing a family, each with a plaque about growth, resilience, and community. Sarah's oak stands at the center, in memory of love that grows stronger through seasons of storm. Our case became law school curriculum. Ohio passed the Millbrook Act mandating audits and background checks for HOA boards. 3 other communities used our precedent to reclaim stolen land. Over $2 million recovered, and I founded the Millbrook Property Rights Education Foundation, offering free legal help to homeowners facing HOA abuse. We've recovered over $300,000 in legal fees and helped 17 families fight back. Last month, we hosted our first tree festival. Kids played where her Escalade once loomed. Families grilled burgers under the shade of our new grove. A local student won a $5,000 scholarship to study property law. As the sun set over the lake, painting the water gold, I thought of Sarah. Her initials were gone, but her legacy lived on in every family gathering, every child swimming in community water, every neighbor who finally felt safe. The fire pit was built where Constance's Escalade used to park. Children's laughter echoed across the lake. We'd learned that when communities stand together, documented truth defeats manufactured authority. And that from the ashes of greed, something beautiful can grow. Now, it's your turn. Share your worst HOA nightmare in the comments. You might be surprised how much power you actually have. And if you want more stories about regular people beating corrupt systems through smart legal strategies and community organizing, hit subscribe. Next week, the homeowner who discovered his neighbor's perfect lawn was hiding a massive environmental crime and turned a noise complaint into a $2.30 million EPA settlement that changed federal regulations. Thanks for watching today's HOA Karen Meltdown. If you enjoyed seeing karma catch up, smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next drama we bring you. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed through the community center like the final note of a dark symphony. Constance Petton, HOA president, real estate agent, neighborhood dictator, was being led out in front of 50 witnesses to news crews and a federal agent who had just heard her full public confession. She didn't say a word. Defiance, no apology, just stunned silence as the reality hit her. This wasn't just the end of her power, it was the end of her freedom. As federal agents escorted her out, I stepped to the podium, the same one she'd used for years to intimidate, humiliate, and control. I looked out at the faces of my neighbors, people I'd barely spoken to a year ago, now united by a shared betrayal, a common enemy, and something even more powerful: hope. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice steady, our community just reclaimed $850,000 in stolen property, and we're going to use it to build something beautiful together. The applause started low, hesitant, almost disbelieving, then grew into a thunderous roar that shook the walls. Justice had arrived, but it wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The legal fallout: 14 federal charges, full restitution, and a lifetime of shame within 72 hours. Constance was formally charged with 14 federal counts, including wire fraud, embezzlement of homeowner association funds, conspiracy to commit property theft, bribery of a public official, filing false emergency declarations, violation of the Clean Water Act, racketeering under RICO statutes. Yes, the mob law, because her pattern of fraud across multiple neighborhoods met the threshold for organized criminal activity. Her defense attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The recordings, the falsified documents, the bribes, the Facebook posts, the confession in front of a federal agent, and worst of all, the $347,000 in embezzled funds, funneled through her real estate company, Petone Properties LLC, to pay for fake arborist reports, legal threats, and even the landscaping around her own mansion. She pleaded guilty. The judge wasn't kind. Full restitution, forfeiture of her property, 5 years of supervised release, 2,000 hours of community service teaching ethics to real estate agents. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She had to stand in front of future agents and say, "I stole from homeowners. I lied. I abused my power. Don't be like me." Her husband, Richard Petton, resigned from city council amid ethics investigations. He's now a part-time golf pro in Naples, Florida, the same state they fled to, trying to escape the headlines. Constance, she's working at a community college in Tallahassee, grading papers for a property law course. I'm told she avoids eye contact when the topic of HOAs comes up. Rebuilding what was lost and creating something greater. 6 months after the arrest, I stood on the deck of what used to be Constance's mansion. Only now it wasn't hers, it belonged to all of us. The federal court ruled that the land, valued at $850,000, was never legally hers to begin with. It was dedicated community green space, stolen through fraud and maintained with stolen money. So the judge didn't just award me $1.4 million in damages, the largest HOA fraud judgment in Ohio history. He ordered the reversion of the entire lakefront property to the homeowners association, and we decided we wouldn't sell it. We'd rebuild it. We tore down the mansion, the symbol of her greed, and in its place, we built the Sarah Blackwood Memorial Community Center, named after the woman who loved trees, who believed in second chances, who taught me that even in the darkest storms, something beautiful can grow. The center now hosts after-school programs for kids, senior yoga and bridge tournaments, free legal clinics for homeowners facing HOA abuse, an annual tree festival where we plant one new oak for every family in the neighborhood, and at the center of it all, a memorial grove. 40 new trees, one for each family in Millbrook Estates, each with a plaque in memory of love, resilience, and community. And at the heart of the grove, a young white oak grown from a sapling taken from the roots of the tree where Sarah and I carved our initials. The chainsaws took the old tree, but they couldn't kill what it stood for. The ripple effect, how one neighborhood changed a lot. Fights didn't just change Millbrook Estates, it changed Ohio. Lawmakers read our case. Judges cited it in rulings. Law schools added it to their curriculum on property rights and civil fraud. And in 2024, the state passed the Millbrook Act, a new law requiring annual independent audits of all HOA finances, criminal background checks for HOA board members, public access to original subdivision plats so no one else gets tricked by fake deeds, and a statewide HOA abuse hotline, modeled after our legal fund but the real victory. 3 other communities used our precedent to reclaim over $2 million in stolen common areas. 1 in Indiana, 1 in Michigan, 1 right here in Ohio. All of them had the same story: a powerful HOA president, fake violations, forced sales, and land that was never legally theirs. Now they're all rebuilding just like we did, the foundation turning pain into power with part of my settlement. I founded the Millbrook Property Rights Education Foundation. Our mission: to help homeowners who are being bullied, fined, and threatened by corrupt HOAs, just like I was. We offer free legal consultations, document review and chain of title analysis, recording law guidance. Yes, you can record your HOA president in many states and a network of pro bono attorneys who specialize in property defense. So far, we've helped 17 families fight back. We've recovered over $300,000 in illegal fines, and we've stopped 3 forced property sales. Families who were about to lose their homes over fake violations. One woman in Kentucky sent me a letter. She said, "I was about to sell my house because my HOA said my garden was non-compliant. I found your video, followed your steps, and discovered they'd been using our dues to pay for their president's vacation. Now, she's gone, and my roses are still blooming." That's the power of one person who refuses to stay silent. The Tree Festival, where laughter replaced fear. Last month, we hosted our first annual Millbrook Tree Festival. Kids played on the playground built where Constance's white Escalade used to loom like a threat. Families grilled burgers under the shade of the new oaks. And in the evening, we lit a fire right where her car used to park. Children roasted marshmallows, laughing, telling ghost stories, and I sat back, watching the flames dance, thinking about Sarah. She never got to see this place, but she's here in every tree, every smile, every family that finally feels safe. We awarded a $5,000 scholarship to a local high school senior, Emma Rodriguez, daughter of the city inspector who stood by me from the start. Her essay, "How One Tree Can Change a Community." She's going to study property law at Ohio State, and this summer she interned with Marcus Bennett, the attorney who helped me take down an empire built on lies. The lesson: power isn't in the title, it's in the people. Constance thought she had power because she was HOA president. She had a clipboard, a gavel, a white Escalade, but real power, it's in documents. It's in recordings. It's in neighbors who finally speak up. She made one fatal mistake. She thought I was just a grieving widower, easy to push around. But she forgot one thing. Electrical engineers don't just solve problems, we dismantle systems. And when you give a problem solver a cause, especially one tied to love, loss, and justice, you don't get revenge, you get reconstruction. Your turn. What's your HOA nightmare? Now I want to hear from you. Have you been hit with a ridiculous fine? Threatened over your mailbox color? Had trees cut down without permission? Been bullied by someone who thinks they run the neighborhood. Drop your story in the comments. You might be surprised how much power you actually have. And if you want more stories like this, real people taking on corrupt systems with smart, legal moves and community courage, hit subscribe, because next week, we're diving into the story of a homeowner who discovered his neighbor's perfect lawn was hiding something far darker than bad landscaping. Turns out it was a toxic waste site, and he turned a simple noise complaint into a $2.3 million EPA settlement and changed federal environmental regulations. That's a story about soil samples, surveillance drones, and the quiet guy next door who refused to back down. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on the bell so you don't miss it. Final thoughts from ashes. Something grows as the sun set over the lake, painting the water gold. I stood at the edge of the restored shoreline. The fire crackled behind me. Children laughed. Music played. And for the first time in years, Millbrook Estates felt like a community, not a battlefield. Constance wanted to cut down my trees for a better view. Instead, she gave me the chance to build something far greater. She taught me that greed creates emptiness, but truth, unity, and resilience, they create legacy. And that legacy